Drop it.
This is Liru, and this is the agricultural debate. The continuous and excessive use of fertilizers leads to land degradation, but agronomists would like to debate that there's nothing called excessive use, there's only safe use. But why won't we just use manure, which is readily available and cheap to use? Well, I don't have answers to all of those questions, but with me is Mr. Mlilo, who is an agronomist, and Nyasha Madimuta, who is an organic manure producer. And we are going to be discussing the motion, organic manure versus fertilizers. Gents, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Mlilo, I'll start with you. Why would you prefer fertilizers over organic manure?
I think you must appreciate that from time immemorial, things have evolved. We have had a lot of advancement technologically in agriculture per se, which talks of mechanization, talk about even the way things are done, the expediency that's needed in production. And anyone who's worth his salt and anyone who wants to really make a mark on the agricultural scene needs to rhyme and grow with that type of advancement. And hence, synthetic fertilizers have a place because we are under pressure from a number of things that I'm going to outline. That necessitates that expediency in production, and that gives us the comfort of production or the comfort of using synthetic fertilizer comes from the need to produce vis-a-vis the needs that are ever growing.
Okay. Nyasha, do you agree with him?
Honestly, it's a very good topic. I think this is why we are seated here to debate about it. It all depends on how you view it, your perspective on it. But I only agree to a certain extent. The reason why I'm saying that is because we all know that farming is not just it's not just what we see on a macro level. It's also something that we see on a micro level, meaning that there are bacteria, there are fungi, and all those things. There's life within the soil profile. So anyone who's practicing agriculture or doesn't understand it, then clearly they have a little idea of what farming actually is. I think I won't exhaust most of the points.
So you're saying he doesn't have the scientific knowledge of fertilizers?
Exactly. What exactly happens? The nutrition, plant nutrition inside. I wouldn't say just that.
Yeah.
You're saying you don't have the scientific knowledge to what you're saying, basically.
Interesting. I would not want to respond to him directly on that, but I think the way I began my presentation showed that it's coming from a scientific base.
Yes.
Yeah, we've already spoken about technological advancement. Where do we get that?
Yes.
Those are laboratory tests and a lot of experiments that have been carried out, and there's empirical evidence to say if such a chemical is applied over a period of time, this is what you get.
Nyashami, I would actually want to say you and all those other people who are into the use of organic manure, you are the people who do not have the scientific knowledge of using those things. Because come to think of it, fertilizers, we actually know you apply this bag of fertilizers with this ammonium nitrate, this amount of this, but when it comes to manure, it's just this compost, and then I'm going to apply it to, you don't even know the actual contents of that.
I think I would like to counter you on that, because I wouldn't say that there is no scientific, I meant the knowledge of the life within the soil. So like if there is an excess use of inorganic fertilizers, then definitely, I'm sure Mr. Mbudo can also agree with me on this one. You lose all your life, the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, all the things that are within the soil that are making it possible for the roots of the plant to thrive. So I wasn't basing on the fact that we don't know how much we've got in ammonium nitrate, and when we're feeding, we don't know how much we're feeding and all that. That's not it. And I also want to respond in saying that in terms of organic farming, definitely we cannot say that there is no knowledge of how much you're putting in and all that. There is a lot of scientific research that has also been put into organic farming. You look at countries in the Europe who are actually going big, which is why there's a very big market on organic farming. They use organic fertilizers, organic pesticides, and all that. I understand that we are going to be limiting our discussion on organic versus inorganic fertilizers, so we're talking about much about pesticides. But yeah, I wouldn't say that there isn't any scientific backing on that. I think it took a wrong turn on that. Just to clarify it.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Mlilo, what are the advantages of using fertilizers over manure?
The advantages are numerous. I think it's important to remain very grounded in where we are.
Yes.
Africa as a continent has faced a lot of challenges. One of the biggest challenges is the shortage of food. I think I've got lots of statistical evidence that I can present to show you that from way back 1965 to maybe the year 2000, there's been a steady decline on what farmers have been harvesting over time. Let's not run away from the fact that
this is still the period that farmers are using fertilizers.
yes. The reason why I'm coming up with this point is that to justify why we are so anchored on chemical fertilizer or synthetic fertilizers. The reason being the ever-threatening cloud of hunger that's hanging over the continent, or even the third world in general, is necessitated that we keep our production levels high in tandem with population growth. So if you do not match those two, you might remain very correct, like my bookish brother is here, but being very irrelevant to the needs of the day. Africa is and in the third world, one of the MDG goals that are eradicate extreme hunger and poverty. That's number one, I think. So if we are looking at those practical sort of like benchmarks that have been put world over, the use of synthetic fertilizer cannot be viewed as an actual way. I think it's a must, and I think there's a word you use. There is the difference between use and abuse. So if we abuse synthetic fertilizer, then we can sit down and say, let's talk about it. But if we are using them according to the prescriptions they are getting from scientific research that is all over the place, then we are okay. It's responsible use of those fertilizers that I'm talking about, not the other use.
Nyasha, we don't have time. That's what Mr. Mlilo is saying. Yes, we can embrace the use of organic manure, but you are moving too slow.
I wouldn't say that we can embrace the use of manure. I would say that we can look forward to using, because organic fertilizer, not just manure, organic fertilizers are the future. There's a point in time. There's a point in time where we are definitely going to need to eradicate the use of inorganic fertilizers. The reason being, we've only dwelt on the advantages. The disadvantages are quite more expensive than anything else. We can both agree that one's health is primary, it's key. So when you look at diseases that are associated with the use and abuse of inorganic fertilizers, they are quite costly. Which is why I would go back and say there's a reason why there's a very big market on organic produced foods and all that. It's all because there are diseases that are associated with that, cancers that are very high blood pressures and all that. And I wouldn't say that the use of organic fertilizers, we're actually moving quite slowly on that. I think it's that there are people who actually don't know that this is a viable thing to go. Because when you look at all your small-scale farmers, most of them, they use cattle manure. That's what's available in the rural areas. They use chicken manure because they are growing lots of chickens. And they use that as fertilizers to produce crops like maize. Someone who actually uses lots of inorganic fertilizers to produce a crop like maize would be using the most expensive route, which is my second point, to say that it's very expensive to use inorganic fertilizers and not to use organic fertilizers. Someone can produce a compost. You don't need much labor and much money on that for you to be able to use organic compost to feed your microorganisms that then break down the organic matter into available nutrients to your plants. So I think there's a way where people really need to be educated, and for us to be intentional in getting people to know what organic fertilizers are all about and how they function. So yes, you're right that maybe people who are producing organic fertilizers are moving quite slow in terms of letting people know. But the honest truth is that organic fertilizers are the future.
Mr. Mlilo, you can enjoy now that the eradication of the use of fertilizers is inevitable.
No, I don't agree with my learned friend here. I think what's important is citing the issue of side effects of using synthetic fertilizer like your cancers and everything. I think what we should be discussing in this meeting or in this debate is how best can we make the use of synthetic fertilizers safe.
No.
I think if that's what we are worried about, we should actually be promoting research into eliminating those negative or rather those things that are associated in aggravating side effects like cancer is talking about.
What would you say are the disadvantages rather of using organic?
Right. Here are the disadvantages.
Yes.
I have been doing agriculture for the past 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I bring a lot of experience in this discussion.
Good.
What he is referring to as a compost is not something that is easy to put together. The material that is used for compost production would need you to get as much as 4 or 5 people or so just gathering the material. Then the time it also takes to produce that or to make the compost mature, I think we're not looking at anything less than 6 weeks. I mean, just to put it out there. Is it worth it? Because we're looking at people who are doing 10, 15, 20 hectares. How many heaps of compost do you need to supply such a place? We need to be practical. As people go to the field, the more geared they are to be able to max their pieces of land, the better for everyone. Remember, we are saying land is shrinking. People are looking for pasture. People are looking for settlement area. So the legal land that's now available must be really maxed in terms of its usage. So there is no room to be going bookish, like my brother is saying. Otherwise, we start the whole nation.
Yes, yes. Nyasha, do you agree with him? What would you say are the advantages of using organic?
Yes, so like I've said that if you're a farmer, patience is a virtue. And if you don't have patience, it's better for you to quit and start maybe venturing into money change and other business that give you quick money. Because what happens is that a farmer, you should understand that your best bet is in improving your soil. So if you've got ever deteriorating soils, your production is definitely going to go down. If you're someone who loves your soil, you build your soil, you put in the organic matter in there, and you make sure that you've got a very good mulch and all that. When you plant your crops in there, definitely your production will start to increase. So people have got a choice. It's either you use inorganic fertilizers and you continue ruining your soils, or you use organic fertilizers and you increase your production as you go, because the health of your soils is increasing. Your plant health will also increase. What will happen is that when you use organic fertilizers to enrich your soils, your soil diseases are also going to go down. Therefore, you are going to have a very good, what we call a crop stand, which is a crop that is beautifully healthy, and the percentage of takes are actually quite high. It's all because you've invested in your soil. Now, what would happen if a farmer goes bankrupt and you're not banking on putting in your organic fertilizers in there? Definitely you're going to run out of business, because you now are faced with a challenge where you need to go buy your fertilizers for you to put into your soils, and then try and grow a crop and all that, but you don't have the money to source that. I honestly feel that Zimbabwe has got lots of land that we've got, arable land, but we're just not utilizing that because of other reasons that I think we'll find a better day to discuss. Not to say that the reason why we're not producing enough is because we're not using the adequate fertilizers and all that. I would really want to say that that's not as true as I would want it to be.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Mlilo, in the previous debate, we were discussing small-scale farming versus large-scale farming. And one of the panelists pointed something interesting. They said large-scale farming, there is too much use of machinery, pesticides, and fertilizers. And with time, the soils will then become dependent, okay? And also with time, as some of these nutrients from the fertilizers are washed away into the seas, we then see that we have developed, the rivers have developed alga, if I'm correct, that's that plant, right? Which are some of the challenges that people face with large-scale farming, right? But also, there's something that was interesting that was said there. These other panelists who were supporting the small-scale farmers said that because large-scale farming is associated with use of fertilizers and tractors and stuff, those people, they've got money. So all they can do is prolong the deterioration of the soil. They keep on improving more fertilizers and more fertilizers, but by the time they leave that land, it cannot be used again without any fertilizer. Is that correct?
I want to agree with you to a certain extent, but at the same time maintain there is a key word that we continually are visiting, and I love to propagate it,
yes,
which is the difference between use and abuse.
But Mr. Mlilo, let's also be practical here. We are looking at a population of 50 million, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And are we going to manage to convince everyone to use fertilizers? You say safe use, safe use fertilizers, or rather we can just opt for organic manure, which we know that there is less harm. Even if you try to abuse or anything, there's less harm to it, unlike with fertilizer.
I think people need to appreciate that the basis of this discussion is not to say that organic manure is not effective. I don't think that's what we are saying.
Yes.
What we are saying is, what are the advantages of either of the two? And in where I'm sitting, I see more advantages in using synthetic fertilizers for the following reasons. One of the reasons that I would want to put forward is, I think I've already mentioned the idea of a population bloom that's currently on. I mean, if you look at, I think world population by 2012 was sitting at about 7 billion. In 2019, we are, I think, way above 2019. I think we're around 8-9 billion or something, which is almost like where we are now. And then looking at that, it's not meaning that the ability to feed those people is also growing at the same pace. So the point I'm going back to is there is an urgent need in the third world and in Africa in particular. And therefore, while we are going to be talking about how to do compost, how to do organic fertilizers, let's think of what are we going to do in 3 months from today. We need to produce food. And the only way we are going to be doing that is when we use scientific evidence that has been researched over time. Synthetic fertilizers are here, and they are here to stay. And to be honest with you, we have a lot of extension that government is afforded, even rural communities, to help and guide and inform the proper usage. The things you are talking about, where you are saying the flowing of synthetic fertilizers into rivers, that's a result of stream-based cultivation, which is in itself a poor application of agriculture. Let me put it that way. So it's a poor utilization of a natural resource. So what we're doing is people need to be informed about how many meters they need to plant away from rivers and water bodies and things. So there is a lot of education that extension people are actually doing right now and are continuing to do. But obviously people decide whether to listen or not to listen. But it's a fact. We need to produce food now, and that food comes from synthetic fertilizers.
Okay.
If you can allow me to just put on what you said. I think one thing that we're definitely learning is that human behavior is not predictable. It is quite difficult to, to influence, which is why we celebrate whenever we influence a certain number of people. But then, just coming to that, I mean, if we're saying that, we appreciate that the use of inorganic fertilizers can be harmful if it is abused. And at the same time, we appreciate the fact that it's difficult to influence people. Human nature is such that people will always want to produce as much as they can. And part of that is to try and push things to the limits as much as they can. So they'll try and maximize their land, they'll try and use as much fertilizers as they can, they'll try and use as much water as they can and all that. And I think, yes, you've clearly stated that, the algal blooms that you are seeing in lakes and rivers and all that is as a result of nitrogen and other nutrients that are leaking into the rivers. But also the use of readily soluble fertilizers. For example, inorganic fertilizers can dissolve faster. Once they dissolve, they're in liquid form. Whether the plant takes it up or not, the rest is history. So if you practice like what you're saying, that there are good agricultural practices and there are some that are bad agricultural practices. So if someone over irrigates, already it's now a combination, it becomes difficult. So at the end of the day, isn't it not safer to use organic fertilizers where you know that like the management of organic fertilizers is quite easier? Like when you put your organic fertilizers, not all of it is available at once. The nutrients are being made available bit by bit because of your microorganisms that are breaking down the organic matter to avoid. So all in all, you've got nature that is on your side, helping you to manage the nutrition part of your soil. And you've got yourself to manage that and apply as well. I would rather say that we use organic fertilizers. But however, I just want to address a certain point that he said. He said that there's an urgent need to produce food, and I agree with him totally, 100%. But the way we can do that for now is to maybe augment the two, to bring the two together, and then you practice. So you put a little bit of your inorganic fertilizers and your organic fertilizers. So the organic fertilizers, you're now building your soils up, and your inorganic fertilizers are feeding your plants there and then. But there'll come a time where your soils will be as fertile as, we don't know, like you will definitely see that your soils are very fertile, and you will need less of that. So instead of you continuously using inorganic fertilizers, which is why I say that organic fertilizers are the future.
Okay.
So yeah.
I like that, Nyasha. But what measures do you have in place for that to happen? Are you producing enough of organic manure so that you can also be at par with fertilizers?
So I think one thing that we can both agree is to say that in Zimbabwe the use of inorganic fertilizers is quite high as compared to the use of organic fertilizers.
Why is that?
Because the reason is because, one, inorganic fertilizers are well marketed. We all know that. Go into any agricultural shop that is selling products that enhance the production of your crops, you will find out that they are selling inorganic fertilizers. May I just finish?
Okay.
The reason why is because, one, is it's readily available. Of course, yes, it's easier to produce with the elements that are there and all that. But the key one is that people really don't know the advantages of organic fertilizers and inorganic fertilizers. Now, when your market is pulling a certain product, you push to produce that product that is being pulled by the market. So once you've got a market pool that is quite big, because people now know and understand why we are supposed to be using organic fertilizers, definitely the production of organic fertilizers will actually boost and they'll go quite high. So I don't think it's a question to say that inorganic fertilizers are better than organic fertilizers. I think it's a matter of knowledge instead.
Okay, but you are responsible for the marketing of organic manure.
Everyone is. Yes, definitely. And I would love to take the responsibility to be in Kai, Cholocho, Harare, or wherever that they are, if they can get to know and understand the benefits of using organic fertilizers. I think that agriculture will not be the same.
But is it possible, though, for organic manure to be packaged the same way fertilizers are packaged, like with all the nutrients and the numbers and stuff? Is it possible?
May you please explain more?
Okay, like actually having a sack of organic manure and with written nitrogen this amount, this nutrient this amount, showing that this is from the laboratory and it has gone through the actual production process. Very good.
Yes, it is very much possible. I think one thing that I'll take just the use of manure, okay, and not. I'm trying to explain it so that it's clear and people can understand. Yeah? If you're using chicken manure, we all know whoever is producing a bird knows what feed that they've put in, they know the grits, the calcium that they're feeding their chickens and all that, and what's being stripped away by the chicken and what remains in as the manure. We also can take your soil, not your soil samples, but your manure samples to well-known laboratories, and they can test for you and tell you, okay, in this you've got so much percentage of nitrogen, you've got so much percentage of potassium and phosphorus and all other elements that you've got. At Amara Farm, I hope that's okay for me to state that, at Amara Farm we actually are on that, where we are trying to practice what we call precision farming as much as we can. So this has to do with how much nutrients do you have in your soil, how much nutrients do you need to add up, so that you've got a crop that is very healthy. And the only way that you can do that is by testing your manures and stuff. Now, if we can do that with one of the raw materials of producing organic fertilizers, which is manure, definitely it's possible to do that with organic fertilizers at large.
Okay.
So yes, definitely my answer is yes, it's possible to do that.
Okay. Mr. Mlilo, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I was waiting and I thought you guys were ready. It was me out and I was getting worried because I think we might mislead people here. But there's one thing that I love though about what we've done.
Yes.
The accepting that the two can be put together.
Coexist, yes.
I think then he is acknowledging that I'm here for a reason.
And you are also here for a reason.
So the point I wanted to make is, I think let's also look at also the infrastructural development that has come with experimenting over time. We have a whole large industry that has been built on manufacturing those fertilizers. So suppose today we decide to migrate into doing organic fertilizers. Let's also think of what happens to the people that are employed by that whole chain. And it's also adding on to the piling problem that Africa is bedeviled with, one of which is unemployment. And then we need to be sensitive around those areas. And the other thing I wanted to say is, we currently don't have much laboratories that are devoted into testing and checking and producing organic fertilizers. Please get me right. We don't have much of literature, even as we speak. I'm very happy this Nyasha is one of the few that are crusading this thing. Amazing. But we don't have much really to say we can now base our premise, our approach in feeding the nation and saying we can come up with those experiments. But right now as we speak, we have existing infrastructure which is there. I won't name the companies, but there is ample evidence to say if we apply so much nitrogen into our soils, so much calcium into our soil, we come up with a healthy crop, and then we get our yields in place. I am of the opinion that before we become overexcited, let's also understand that by migrating to organic fertilizers, we are actually putting ourselves out there to say, are we able to gather enough material to cover the acres and hectares of land that needs to be worked on to feed the nation? If the answer is no, so I think let's currently sit on where we are and start dreaming. Hopefully, maybe 2-3 years, I don't know, 2-3 decades, maybe we can get to where we want to be. But as we speak right now, as you called me to this meeting to say, what's my opinion about the use of synthetic fertilizer? There is so much space for them now. And I think the quicker we can actually put them to good use, proper usage.
Now I like the fact that you are continuously stating that now and now.
Yes.
What about the future? Is it possible that organic manure, organic fertilizers can eradicate synthetic fertilizers completely, judging from the advantages that are at hand in future, even if it's decades to come?
I would agree and not agree. Let me put it this way. Agree in the sense that yes, people are free to research and study and come up with whatever they want. But the reality on the ground is we are actually getting to more sophisticated generations. We currently are battling with GMOs. People are so much instant now, or instant reply. They want things that are happening there and there. So that being the case, I do not see synthetic fertilizers disappearing anytime soon, because they are giving us that product. Yes, I think my advice to the world out there is let's use them properly, let's use them responsibly. But they are here to stay. And as long as people are going to be testing their soils for their pH levels, acidity and alkalinity, as long as that is ascertained on the onset of whatever season we are confronted, it's going to be responsible use, and getting whatever we want. I think that would be my point. They are here to stay.
Okay. Nyasha, your last points before we give the floor to
Good. I think I could try and counter 2 points that Mr. Mure is sharing. The first one being on do we have enough material to produce organic fertilizers? I think the second one is the fact that people have got a tendency of wanting things there and then. Okay, the first one, I think that yes, definitely we'll have enough material to do this. The reason why, I think I'm actually putting some trade secrets out there. But the reason being, when you look at the ecosystem and how it is, they are what we call invasive crops. You understand that. I'll give an example. Lantana kamana, one of the most troublesome shrubs that's growing in Africa. And it is said that it's so poisonous, it's very difficult for us to take it out and all that out of the fields and all that. So those are some of the opportunities that people who produce organic fertilizers can actually counter on and use as organic fertilizers. And these invasive crops, they grow quite fast. And this, if they grow quite fast, it means that their turnover is quite high. So you can harvest them, you compost and do whatever that you're doing, and be in a production route that keeps you going. I think the second one is that the honest truth is that when I was growing up, they would say that the future lies in the young ones. Yeah. So it simply means I'm not saying the future lies in me. I'm saying that the future lies in the young ones, the people who are in primary school, those who are actually growing. If we teach them the good agricultural practices now, the future, I tell you, will eradicate inorganic fertilizers. The reason why I'm saying that, there's no one who would want to let someone know that, if you continuously consume this, you're poisoning your body, all that, and you give that as an advice to someone. Definitely not. I think we can all agree on that. And, let's take, for instance, a 50 kg bag of ammonium nitrate. It's got 34.5% nitrogen. And what's the rest? No one knows. These are we call them innate ingredients. But what exactly are those innate ingredients? These are minerals that when we consume, they don't go out when we go visit the toilet, whether in liquid form or in solid form. No. They actually accumulate in your body, which is why you'll get people who then get at a certain age, they'll get a certain disease because of that. So definitely we want to be in a position where we say we want to eradicate all that. We want something that is healthy. A healthy nation is a productive nation. We all know that. So the healthy way of going, I can only see one, which is organic fertilizer. So I'm pleading to the elderly, to the people with so much knowledge like Mr. Mure, to help us advertise organic fertilizers as much as we can. Get people to know, the young ones to know, what are the advantages of using organic fertilizers. And I tell you, the future will just be as bright as we can.
He's in business.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone with questions, additions, subtractions? Say.
It's really quite an interesting subject. My question is, can you use the organic and the inorganic fertilizers, whatever, simultaneously?
In practice, we are because we were trying to educate the nation. We're trying to talk to the people out there who are having an interest in farming to say this is the way to go. I'll obviously go for a midpoint, because eclipsing one side in favor of another is committing suicide. So what you need to do is, while you are building your soil with organic fertilizers, you need to be producing now. So that act must be balanced, because when I go to the market, they don't pay according to, like here in Africa, to be honest, there is no one who cares whether it was organically produced or chemically produced. There is no demarcation. So there is no incentive for that. So my point is, I'm looking at a small scale farmer who's maybe somewhere, and I'm trying to make them compete with bigger farmers that have bigger acreages. So the only thing that I reasonably can tell them, ethically as well, is the proper usage of synthetic fertilizers. At the same time, maybe encouraging them to do their compost so that there is that fusion where maybe Nyasha is happy, and then when he visits them, he but the point I'm making is there is that room for both of them. That's what we're actually doing now.
I'd like to, thank Mr. Milo for acknowledging that yes, definitely these two can merge. Organic fertilizers, I'd like to say it strongly, are also a source of nutrients for your crops. So let's not look at them as just, this other thing that you just apply into your soil to make sure that your soil is good and nice. No, they are also a part, but the way that they release their nutrients could be slow, which is why we are banking on, fusing the two, so that at least as you're building your soils and getting to a point where you might actually not need to put in any more nutrients into your soils because you've built your soils up and they can readily feed the crop and all that. Then we can go there. So yes, definitely, I think for now the solution could be fusing the two organic fertilizers and inorganic fertilizers, and the future is organic fertilizers. I think I'll keep on emphasizing on that.
Your last point, Mr. Milo.
Yeah, I think I love what Nyasha just said, where he is acknowledging the fact that organic fertilizers are slow releasing. That admission makes me stand up and go. I've achieved what I was here to do.
Yeah.
And also looking into the future, I think let's not forget that the graph or the picture I've just painted on the explosion of populations the world over, this is not slowing down anytime sooner. Yes, pandemics will come, people will die in numbers, but let's also understand that people are also being born in numbers, right? And then that population explosion will need to be supported by a vibrant food source. And that vibrant food source comes from the use of synthetic fertilizers, that which we are so irritated to talk about. And I think it's important that while Nyasha is going to be crusading the use of organic fertilizers, there is no need to eclipse the use of chemical fertilizers. I think that then will become misleading. All I'm saying is, let's also understand that that future we are talking about, the pressure we are feeling now for feeding our nations is going to be even treble as we go forward. So I don't see a way or any time soon we're going to depart from talking synthetic fertilizers. I don't.
Okay, gents, we won't finish this debate. Please allow me to conclude. Okay, thank you so much everyone for watching. So what I'm gathering from this debate is that we need to strike a balance.
Yes.
We need to be able to use synthetic fertilizers as well as organic fertilizers, right? But there's still a very big gap that needs to be covered in terms of manufacturing and marketing of organic fertilizers. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to leave your comments below. Remember to follow us. It's at Hamara Farmer on Facebook and it's at Liru. Thank you so much, James. Thank you to our studio audience. Until next time, bye for now.